investments into Libya and controlled the entire Libyan apparatus. The problem now is that, for such a regime to make an about turn at the speed which is required, I think is the difficulty. It is as plain as day that this escalation has a point of no return, whether it's today or whether it's in a week's time, whether it takes a mass murder of the like we saw in Syria many years ago. But, the point is we've moved into a new normal across the region. And I'm not sure that, it's not really political analysis, it's more sort of psychiatric analysis of this individual. Can he move quick enough to do what is needed? And I'm not sure he can, because 41 years of sycophancy and being told you're the greatest and the most intelligent and the leader of the people is sure to turn anyone's head. And I think what you're witnessing now is exactly a result of that.
All right, just briefly in the few minutes that we have left, I want to ask all three of you how you see this whole thing playing out. It's only been a few days that we've seen these protests, what we've been able to see of it anyway. But Ashur Shams, do you see this going the same way as Tunisia and Egypt? I know you hope you do.
Well, I know the people inside Libya have been quiet and have been repressed for many years, and this is just the tip of the iceberg. It's something which is expected a long time ago, but never happened. There were offers of reform, and there were talk of improving the situation. It has not improved for many years, and this is now has come out. It is not going to stop. Red lines have been passed. A red line of killing the Libyans killing Libyans, and things like that. It's not going to stop here. And what, of course, Gaddafi is going to do is going to defend his power base. I agree with the psychologically, how he behaves, and how he's a very strange, weird person, if you like, who might turn any time the opposite direction.
Ali Khan Satchu, how do you see this playing out over the next few days?
I think we've entered a new normal right across the Middle East. I think it's a trend change, and I think Libya is a holdout. It's a hermit kingdom. It's a black box. There's a lack of information. Egypt was on the other side. So this might take longer to play out. But I think ultimately we're witnessing the sinking of an old order. And when the new order comes into play, I'm not sure. But the old one, we've turned a page. And Gaddafi belongs in the 20th century. I can't see him adjusting quickly enough. And I think Western governments, it's interesting to see who's going to break out. I think David Cameron will break out. He was unhappy with Lockerbie anyway. I think he can come out and say it how it is. But I think, for the Western governments, they can't hang back too much longer. Really, it's too obvious.
All right, briefly,
now,
Ian Black, we know we've made this point before. Information is sketchy, but I mean, how do you see this playing out? Are we seeing the beginning of the end of this regime in Libya?
Well, I think we're seeing the beginning of the end, but I don't know how long it's going to take. I think would be the only certain thing I could say. I agree that this looks pretty irreversible, but a lot of people could die and many more bad things could happen before this very strange regime, very isolated, very idiosyncratic, recognizes that it's going the way of history. In the wake of these extraordinary events, Tunisia, Egypt, after all, Libya's two nearest neighbours have gone. But I don't think it's going to happen easily or quickly.
Well, it will certainly be interesting to see how all of this does play out, not only in Libya, but throughout the whole Middle East. But that is all we have time for. I want to thank all of our guests for taking part in the discussion. Ashur Shams, Ali Khan Satchu, and Ian Black. Many thanks for your time. And thank you for joining us on this edition of Inside Story. As always, we welcome your feedback on this and any of the topics we discussed. Remember, you can email your comments to us at insidestory@aljazeera.net. Bye for now.
An uprising on the streets, showing no sign of relenting. Protesters united in their defiance of the regime. As demonstrations continued for a third week, President Mubarak remained unmoved. But how much longer could he ignore the demands of his people and hold on to power? In a day-by-day account, we look at the events that changed Egypt, from those that witnessed them firsthand. Fall of Mubarak, at this time on Al Jazeera.
China has a growing elderly population, and as a consequence of its one-child system, there are fewer younger people to take care of them. It's a responsibility that often falls to the state. Private retirement homes offer an alternative, but independence comes at a price, financially and emotionally. Faces of China, at this time on Al Jazeera.
They grew up as Americans, children of refugees who fled the war in Somalia. Yet now, some are returning to fight and die in a homeland they can barely remember. This is the story of young Somalis who have forsaken the American dream in pursuit of a jihadist ideology. What's turned them to this path? What's been the impact on their families back here in the US? And what can the American authorities do about it?
The Raghi Omar Report, at this time on Al Jazeera.
It is in the details. A look. A connection. The moments that reveal the truth. Award-winning documentaries from critically acclaimed filmmakers. Witness documentaries to open your eyes. At this time on Al Jazeera.
Personal blogs by professional journalists. blogs.aljazeera.net. This is Al Jazeera.
Good to have your company. Welcome to this news hour. Coming to you live from Doha with me, David Foster, and from Al Jazeera's news centres here, plus live from London and from Washington. These are the top world stories. Libya accuses Europe of encouraging dissent, but as buildings burn in Benghazi, the army is said to be siding with the protesters. Bahrain's opposition leaders demand political reform, but demonstrators' demands differ from those calls.
I'm Shihab Ratansi in Washington. The top story from the Americas. Showdown in Wisconsin. The standoff deepens over union rights and budget cuts. Rallies stretch into a seventh day.
I'm Stephen Cohen in London with all the latest from Europe, including Angela's angst. The German Chancellor faces a humiliating defeat in critical elections.
And crying foul in Uganda. The long-serving president wins another 5 years in power. The opposition calls it a fraud.